So Myra's had classes with me before. This semester I had to really shortcut getting to know Allison Green, which I know is so worth your time and everything you were hoping for in your life tonight. But why am I even qualified to teach you? Especially why am I qualified to teach you AutoCAD and SketchUp? And I've had 4 years in the field working with both of those things, but I use it almost weekly and almost every day of my life. I'm constantly working on remodel projects. My father and I flip homes in our free time when we're not working at our normal jobs. He's a full-time accountant and partner in McGladrey, so he's super busy. And then he has a bunch of contractors that work for him doing these houses, and then he has about 12 properties right now, Mishawaka, South Bend, Osceola area that we have flipped and remodeled. The one in front of you is not one of those. It is my house. It's a 1970s home. It's really 1969, but it is a mid-century modern home, which was my dream, and I'm going to be building that dream for the rest of my life, I have a feeling. So here is my dining room. And I had already, like, this was not painted this way before. So this is how I painted it. I collect antiques. A lot of my furniture has been handed down to me, grabbed from garage sales. So it just is what it is. It's fairly eclectic, but most of it mid-century modern. And then we do all the work ourselves. I basically have my husband, and his honey-do list is 10 times longer than yours, trust me. But he has the energy of 10 men, and that's the kind of stuff he likes to do. He's a woodworker, graphic designer, and artist, so he gets the job done. Eventually, we're going to rip all the carpet out, and we'll have wood floors. But for now, it is what it is, and with a 2-year-old, it's pretty disgusting. So slowly but surely, we're making all these changes. He had to assemble that light. It came from China in about 300 different pieces. It was a really fun night. So we're updating, but what does SketchUp have to do with this? Well, before I have him do anything, and before I would have a contractor, especially a contractor, do anything, I would either draw it, depending on which software they would prefer and how conceptual versus how precise they need to be, because some people need more instructions than others in life. My husband doesn't. He's super spatial. So I design things in SketchUp. This is my living room. This is the entry to my living room. It's kind of monolithic, opening at the center. This is what I was hoping to do with a picture wall. And I went through, and this whole giant wall down here, the ceilings in there are pretty high. They're over 12 feet. So I wanted something to anchor the far wall. And I decided, what if we created our own pipe shelves, which we drew in SketchUp, put together, figured out all the fittings, calculated the price to see the cost compared to buying that. And then on the other side, we had an existing sofa. I wanted to buy a light like this, eventually add shelves, which this has been a big series of debate, and I'm glad I did in SketchUp because I could show to people. They're like, it's kind of cavernous and creepy to have a shelf above your head, Allison. And I said, I kind of like it, but what are we going to do? I don't know. It's been a big, long argument on Facebook. Tulip chair, already had it. So I created these chairs in SketchUp on my own by deleting off pieces of other chairs and putting them all together. This chair, Joybird, has all of their models online ready to use. So places like that you can download straight into SketchUp and see how they would look in your home, so you know what you're getting and you have a footprint of those items. So once I create my models like this and I say, honey, this is what our living room is going to look like, then slowly but surely we take this model and begin to build. So we bought so many pipes to see what the reality of that was going to look like. My baby, I put him to work too. Whoever will work in my household. But the reality becomes pretty much identical to what the model was, right? The chairs with the wire frames, the pipe fittings that we had to wash, paint, tighten, screw down. All the shelves were cut and jointed together. All of the loops were cut out of them. So busy guy. And my wall that I wanted to hang, if this was a contractor, I would send them a elevation saying exactly the dimensions between each of these photos from the floor and from the outside framing of the wall. For Aaron, I just give him the SketchUp model, and then he builds it off of that. So I use it all the time in a variety of ways. I have a full SketchUp model of this crazy one, which I'll show you another time, so I'm not spending too much time doing this tonight. of a really strange project I have where there was a bathtub at the middle. Oh no, well, not a bathtub, a giant pool in the middle of the house, and AstroTurf. Very strange. We bought this huge house and we've completely changed it around. I've also been you. I've been a student. So these are things that I've done with SketchUp 10 years ago. Still nice, in my opinion. I'd still go to this coffee shop. And this would have been in advance. There used to be not one, but 3 projects. So this was a smaller project with in advance on top of my larger project that I did a restaurant for it. This was a 1950s hair salon. Both of these files are SketchUp. So SketchUp can be very clean, editorial, and like something like this, or you can change the style and have it be kind of sketchy and conceptual, something like this. Depends on the feel of what you're trying to promote. The 108 space planning class, that used to be different. So it wasn't the boathouse when I did it. It was create your own entire house, create your own entire 3D model, like physical cut out model that you had to do, and then figure out what the plan was. So this was my final rendered floor plan that I did by hand. And then this was an example of my drafting work, because back then you didn't learn enough CAD to do the CAD to go along with that class. So everything was drafted by hand. Joyous day. And then I'm also an artist. This is art from my first year painting in college to give you an idea of what I used to do. I really enjoy abstract 3-dimensional art. But now I am in the process of doing a lot of commissions for friends and family. So I have an artist friend and he wanted me to do a Frida. I don't know if you know Frida Kahlo or not. She's a very famous woman and kind of androgynous. You know, is it a woman? Is it a male? So I'm working on this painting. Here's my painting. Here's the original. It has a long way to go. This is like layer 3, a couple of days work. So a little bit longer, but I love to paint. So I do all these things, the art side of it, I do the SketchUp side of it, and the AutoCAD almost every minute of every day. And I love it. So if you have questions on it and you're not coming to my lab hours, then you're really not bothering me. I mostly answer anytime, day or night. If I'm not, it must be something really important. Yesterday I had 6 people hit me up for lab hours that didn't exist, and it ended up being, a full days of lab hours, which made sense because Monday didn't work out for me. So if you need me, let me know. You're not bothering me. I like my job. I like helping people, especially with these programs. So we'll close out of here and let's look at what we're going to do today. Some of you had space planning today. So Professor King was talking about the office that's going to be placed on the site plan. I developed this office. This is exactly why you need SketchUp. SketchUp is so great. It takes something flat that we normally wouldn't be able to use. So I found this on Pinterest. She was like, I wonder if we could have kind of like a pool house / office. And I went on Pinterest and I found this plan. It's free to me to use. I'm sure there's some type of weird copyright that I'm infringing on. But I just had a plan. And then I was like, well, what if I build the model? And then I kind of modify it a little bit for the needs of the specific office we're working with. So it came with this as a picture. I put this almost same dimensions into my AutoCAD file and modified it, and that gave me eventually the SketchUp file that you're seeing in front of you today. And I just did it from that picture, and I intuited a lot of like, what would the trim be? What looks nice? What kind of detailing and moldings would I need here? Some of them I've drawn myself, and some of them, like the columns, are just items that I brought in from the 3D warehouse, which we'll learn about tonight. It's controlled. And this is like real brief, and then they'll be more detailed in a minute. But we can see on the right-hand side over here, it has layers. So we'll see overlapping tools. They look really similar. Like this is a 3-point arc, and this is a move tool. This is a paint bucket, which you're probably familiar with from a different program. A measuring tape. All right, these things are all nice. Oh, a magnifying glass. So you get used to these kind of things, and you start to realize, not so bad. Redundancies, repetition, Hopefully this will go my way. Now it's very different software, but there are things that cross between the two. Layers are one of them. So if I put things on really, really nice layers, like my roof, who knows, this is an old file. Turn my roof on, turn my roof off, yay. I can rotate up, we're playing Dollhouse right now, come over the top, look down into it, and it's really, really nice, okay? So just like CAD, but three-dimensional and polygonal. Polygonal, it's P-O-L-Y, like polygonal. That's probably a better way to say it. Polygonal, I'm always shortening it. So we'll explain what that means. A little bit different because they're segmented, disjointed lines and never actual curves. Well, it looks like a curve, it's lying to you. Your eyes are misleading you. So this is the office plan. Unlike CAD, where I did a like slow start, you know, get in the water, test your toe. This is a jump in and swim kind of week. It'll be due after break, the 22nd. I'm going to get as much into this video as I can and get us as forward as I can to help out with the 108 students. So you're going to feel it this week, just a little bit, but we've got a break and then another full week. And I hope the video is pretty clear. So if we look at a PDF, this is included for you under your homework assignment. The homework's really a nice clear layout. It breaks everything into sections, what needs to be done in CAD, what needs to be done in SketchUp, step by step for parts of the SketchUp. So I'll go over that in a minute here, but there is this PDF, and I'll control minus out so we're looking just at it. This is my bird's eye view of the floor plan of that office space with dimensioning in red. So I don't need to cover this with you, how to draw this in CAD. It's lines, offsetting. Clearly it's probably easiest to go around the outside and put in some of these things and then offset in 6 inches for the majority of other things. I've included more written dimensions, like this door is 3 foot, this window is 3 foot. The dimensions aren't on here. I noticed that. I included that in the written homework instructions. So we're drawing this plan in CAD to see the usability of importing and exporting things from CAD. I'm not doing the drawing work tonight on the screen because we're at a point where we know how to do that. I can make some suggestions. We're going to hope my computer keeps up with me because I'm going to have a lot of things open. So I've created a week 8 file, keep myself organized with everything I want to do. I'm going to open up a file by a past student. It's neither good nor bad. We'll say it's an old file. It wasn't her completed file. Her final, it says final, but it was final 1. So there was a long list of numbers that came after that. But it will give people who are in space planning a good idea of what exactly the site planning looks like. It'll give people in my class a good idea of how much space planning people have to deal with and just like what is the reality of fitting this onto the sheet. So we have the PDF that's found under our homework, and you're taking my word for that for now. And here it is, this little boathouse. Now, I don't go over the parameters of what Professor King wants in this class because that's for you to know and me to find out. But you can put it anywhere you can fit on the plan. Now, she had specific plantings she wanted to go on her plan, so she tried it a couple ways. So here she was like, well, what if I build this nice pathing from the road? It's private with plants, and then I put my guy back here. What if I put it in the other corner? I probably like this one better. What if it's closer to the road? You could put it up here if it'll fit in here. And the way you'll know if it could fit is you come to the very end, and that's the end of your property, right? So you could give yourself some guidelines like she did to say, this is what I can work in. There might be an easement that she allows extra besides that. Sometimes I know she'll say that in her instructions. But if we're staying in the perfect boundary, somewhere in here, we got to plop this guy down. Now for my students, don't care, wherever you want it, that's fine. You just draw it. That'd be wonderful. For students in her class, wherever makes sense to go along with your actual work. You might want to put this guy on his own layer, right? So we could go up to layer properties. I can only imagine what Liz's layers will look like. And then we get a new layer and we can come in here and say, what do we want to call him? outdoor office, you know, whatever makes sense to you. It's just a layer. It's a way to manage things. So I have outdoor office, and while I'm drawing it, I want to make sure that's my active layer, so I can drop down the layer menu and go into my outdoor office. They're alphabetical. Here's my O. And if I was drawing, then I'd start drawing until I complete this. Now I didn't draw it, so I could also select everything and at the end go in and plop it onto that layer, hit escape, and then check it. Yep, everything's on outdoor office now. That's wonderful. So knowing you've drawn it, you've put it on a nice layer that you can toggle on and off and move how you want, because I'm sure you're all going to change your minds a couple of times. We want to isolate that office into its own drawing, because if your stuff looks like this and you tried to export this or import it into our SketchUp, it's going to blow SketchUp's mind. It's just going to be like, no way, that is too much. And you'll go to do it and it'll bring everything in at once, and then it'll go bug splat. That's literally what it says. It says bug splat, and the whole SketchUp crashes, and then you have to do it over again, and you'll keep doing it, and it's too big. So we need to get this little baby guy out here, because he's not too much, and even the whole house wouldn't be, but there's blocks and layers, and SketchUp tries to take the layers with it, so it's thinking extra hard. So what I want to do is select over him once he's drawn, and that's on you. And then I could copy him in the upper right hand corner with my copy clip, my clipboard. I'm under the Home tab. And then once he's copied, I could go to my Start menu, and I could create for myself an architectural imperial template. So architectural imperial, and go into model. What's nice about this is there is no layers outside of the layers that are up here. There's not very many, nothing for it to think about. We got a nice clean point of access right here. We can do Control V to paste it in, or we could have clipboarded it in with paste up here. And I'm not going to make you do the comma 00 whatever and put it there. Just kind of locate it here, because SketchUp does well with finding that same 0 point. So the closer we get it to it, the easier it'll be to locate it on SketchUp's screen. So ish, not perfection. If you want to, you can review that. That's like in our second week of CAD video, how to get stuff at the origin. So I have him placed. Now I'm going to save him, and he's in my architectural imperial. That's really important because that's feet and inches. I'm going to save him as something meaningful to me. So I could do outdoor office, because that's what I did in the other one. If you have a special author that you're designing this for, you could do that person's name in office. I don't really care, just that it makes sense when you go to import it. So wherever you want, for me it's under week 8 on my desktop, and I can save it. Now I have this file. It's isolated from the bigger file, and it's really, really clean. Let's look at SketchUp. So I have a bunch of stuff I want to keep open, and for my sake, I'm just going to keep it open so we can review some of it as we go on. But this is a trick. So I already have SketchUp open in 3 places. If you tried to open SketchUp once and it popped open and then you started working, and then you went to like open within SketchUp as if I was in open within CAD, it'll say, well, do you want to save the current file? And you'll say yes or no, and then it'll close out of it. So in order to prevent that and have multiple SketchUps open, if you have a mouse with a center click, and you might know this, you click on this symbol down here, it will open a whole nother SketchUp, as opposed to opening within itself and closing within itself. So this is what you'll see. Now, this is an error on the school side, not mine or Professor King's side. We even looked at our request today. We requested 2017 on these computers, and they're going to have to fix that after the break. But it works the same. It's going to look the same on your screen, except for those weird Mac users who are secretly doing it in Mac on me. That'll look completely different. So for SketchUp, we click Start using SketchUp. All right. So here is my lady. Now it might have done something different if it was the prior menu. You would have seen, like if I didn't have one open already and I clicked SketchUp, then it would say pick a type of template that you want to do. And if these are saved, I might as well do it for your sake. So this will be steps of our homework tonight. Yes, I want to save it. Fix later. Never get worried about little things SketchUp's going to save. It wants to fix everything all the time. Don't panic and think you broke it. All right, so what happens, that's if I want multiple SketchUps open. I could have one open, and then I could click on it with my center scroll. If I just have SketchUp somewhere here, so here's my 2016 on my desktop, and I double click it, and then I say start using SketchUp, it'll throw me into whatever my last template was, or choose template. It might force you to come in here to this template and you're like, oh my gosh, look at all these things. So there's simple template feet and inches, simple template meters, architectural design feet and inches. What is the difference between architectural design feet and inches and simple template feet and inches? Well, this is really silly and you're not going to believe me, but the difference is that architects don't like the blue and the green. They like the cleanliness of the gray and the whitish gray background. So they created this template which doesn't mock the reality of the outside, just to be fancy. And that's the one I like to use as well, because I'm not a huge fan of the sun and the sky, but we can do either one of those, simple template feet and inches or architectural design. I'm going to use architectural design and start using my SketchUp. So that throws me into here, which is going to bring me to kind of our notes and where we're going to be with our homework tonight. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. Make sure I get out of my emails and all the other junk. Okay, so I'm on my Ivy Learn. I can go into my CAD class. And then we're going to go to week 8. And you can't go past that because that's all I've got. But when you come back from break, there'll be more weeks because I've talked with Professor King. And now that I know the trajectory of that class, I can line up my second half. So assignment 8, that's our SketchUp assignment. And it says CAD office drawing completed per PDF. So that's what I showed. There's a CAD PDF. Here's the PDF that I had pulled up on my screen with the dimensions of that office that's to go on the site plan. Space planning per instruction of Professor King, 115 wherever you want, or where I did in the video. So I showed it 2 places on Liz's plan. Those places are fine if you want to put it there. Use the PDF and notice that the front window is 36 inches wide and the front door is 36 inches wide, and centered internal room overall. Both of those things are. So that means they have equal distance on the left and the right within the space. Those are the only extra dimensions you'd need to complete the drawing of that file. So that's piece 1. Piece 2, basic use of SketchUp under the drawing toolbar. Show that you can use each of these. So these are really simple. It's like drawing in CAD. You know, you click one, you add the thing. You click, you add the thing. So we'll go over that, and it's real free and easy. I don't even look for it to be any specific type of way. Advanced use of SketchUp. Complete the office. Layer management basic shapes. So import and draw all corners and diagonals. So we have to do our import. And like I said, it's kind of a sink or swim week. So I'm going to go back and forth between why things actually happen and just trying to get it onto the video for you so you can try it. I want this to be the week we kind of conceptually go in, get to try a bunch of tools, and you're like, this makes no sense. SketchUp is different than anything you've ever encountered. It is not like Revit and CAD in the way you have to organize your lines. So it will feel odd, and this might go well for some and not for others, and I'd rather just see that all happen at once than give you something really easy like draw shapes and be out another week of not knowing. So we're just going to try it and see how it goes. It should go well with my instruction. So import. Let's see how we do that. This will be one of those little confusing things. We've created outdoor office. We've saved it somewhere we know. Mine is in week 8. I now have SketchUp open at the same time as AutoCAD. We're not going to have AutoCAD open after we finish the import because we want SketchUp to run at maximum capacity. I need to import my drawing into here to start pulling the lines up and make them three-dimensional. So I'm going to go to my File tab, and I'm going to go into Import. I need to make sure this will be the default when you're in here. You will not see anything. Mine is under week 8. All I can see are SketchUp files. I want to see my AutoCAD file. So I'm going to go to the bottom right-hand corner and drop down my SketchUp file menu so that I can choose AutoCAD as a possible type of import. Within there, I had saved the file as Outdoor Office. I'm going to left click on it to make it active, and then I'm going to click Import in the bottom right-hand corner. It's thinking through all these things. Look at how many things it had to think about. Layers, blocks, arcs, circles, lines, polylines. It thought about if you hatch things, if you had text. So you can see why a bigger file would drive it absolutely insane. You can click close. It's not going to hurt anything. It's going to continue on its way. Notice it forces one of the corners to the origin here. I know it's the origin axis because there's my axis lines, right? I have the vertices of all of the axis points meeting with each other, and we'll look at what those things are here in a minute. There's an orbit tool. It looks very similar to AutoCAD's up here in our toolbar. And if I rotate around, so I'm left clicking and I'm moving my mouse in my hand across the table as I'm left clicking, holding down, not picking up. So not like click once, but click and hold and pulling my mouse around in order to orbit. I can also zoom in and out with my center scroll, just like in AutoCAD. There's views that are like AutoCAD, so the top view in AutoCAD is what we're defaulted to. When I'm in AutoCAD like this is my top view. I am bird's eye looking down. When I'm in SketchUp, if I go to View, let's see, let's go to Camera, Standard Views, Top. It gives me the same identical view as what I'm seeing in AutoCAD. Now, I can't promise you, if we look at this, it's really nice. So I hope that it comes in. I've seen it happen the other way though, that it comes in, my origin was here and it's oriented how it's supposed to be. I'm not going to promise it. It might have to be rotated, which we can cover in a little while, but it looks very similar. We see kind of these snapping points. Now we have a plan we can start to build some three-dimensionality off of. If I rotate back up, it's no longer in top view using my orbit tool. Now I'm going to use Rosie the Riveter. She's going to get out of the way over here. So I could select her by clicking on her. This is our select tool. Select entities, modify tools, or other commands. Similar to CAD, we want to see that little mouse pointer. I clicked on her. She's blue and active, like things in CAD when they are active. And now I'm going to just move her out of the way. So if I click on Move, and then click on her, I can move her out of the way. Now I could put her in the sky. I could put her on the ground. Notice there's a little red line. It's very similar to that ortho tracking that we have going on to CAD. So this is just moving her out perfectly along that red axis to the right side. So there are snapping lines that are created by these dashed lines that will appear when we want to move something more strategically. Now Rosie's way off over there, okay? All right, I'm gonna look at my chat. Okay, we're still good. So we have our import. Let's go back to our homework. We've imported it, and my steps say that I am going to draw all corners and diagonals before anything else. I'm actually approaching this differently this year, so if Heather's here, it's going to be really different, Heather. I mean, the tools work the same way, but I'm not going to have them draw abutted corners. I'm going to do mitered corners so that the wall's exterior work a little bit better. We're going to do those diagonal lines all at once to start creating faces. Keep with me. So I'm going to go back to camera, standard views, top. And I need to add lines because right now I just have lines. Notice how it's like black lines on a gray sheet of paper. I'm going to show you if I grab the rectangle tool, right, hover, I have shapes under the drop down menu. There's rectangles, rotated rectangles, circle, polygon. Most of the time we use rectangles and circles. So this is part of your homework earlier, like the easier shapes. Just grab the rectangle tool and draw a rectangle. Notice the difference in the gray. So at the center here, when I left click and I went back and grabbed my select tool to click on here, I'm selecting the face of this object. When SketchUp has more than 3 lines, it creates a face. So if I was just drawing lines, which you do with your pencil tool for lines, hover over it in the upper left-hand corner, I left clicked on it, and then I left click to start drawing lines, so line 1, and then I want to click on an endpoint, line 2, and I want to click into finish. When I finished with 3 lines, it can't be 2. You need at least 3 lines to create a face. There's a lot of mathematical geometry going on here. So I create my face. Then it puts the face in the middle. It's almost like adding glass up over a frame. We made our frame. It's perfectly connected. And now I can put my sheet of glass. It just appears in the middle, creating a face. My faces are separate from my lines in reality. Here's a line, a line, a line, and here's a face. Here's a line, and here's a face. If I delete a line, it deletes my face. If I delete one line when it's like this, it deletes my face. In order to have a face, you have to have a closed loop of lines. You cannot have it open. All right, so faces, lines, closed lines, make a face. I could go back in and add another line, and even though I didn't use the rectangle tool, I'm good as gold, and my face plops back in there. I need faces because faces are what we extrude / push and pull. Notice in the upper left-hand corner, you see this little arrow pointing up out of a face. It's like, can we bring this up? If I want to have walls that are 8 foot tall, I need a face. So if I click on this and click the face to push and pull it up, and then I'm going to use my orbit tool to see what happened. The face gives me the 3-dimensionality that I need. Without a face, I just have lines and I'm working in 2-dimensional space. So I want to create all the walls of my final office building. So I'm going to go back up to camera, standard views, top. There's a lot of little terms I've got to get in here, ideology on top of the homework. So how can I create the faces best and put them on good layers and group them so I can turn them on and off? Most importantly, because we're moving towards using this to create really good elevations, both interior and exterior, is the ability that in 3 dimensions, if this was all one piece in here, and it was all in one layer, just like in layers in AutoCAD, then if I wanted the bathroom elevation in here and I went to turn it off, the back wall would turn off with the front wall. We don't want that. We want to have the ability to turn off just this piece or just this wall and looking at it from different sides. So it's a lot of layer management. The more layer management, the better your outcome will be. I'm going to grab my drawing tool, my line tool in the upper left-hand corner, and I'm going to miter some edges in here. So I'm going to add a line here, and then I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to add a line here. I'm going to add a line down here. It's trying to keep, I'm scrolling in. It's just trying to keep up with me. And a line here. And we'll see, I might have to do the import again. It worked earlier today. I've already ran through this one time. But it's seeming to be finicky. All right. In theory, let me see if it's just the import. I had this happen last year too. And how would my workaround be for it? All right, in theory, we should start seeing the gray already popping up. So I'm going to try one more import just in case. And once we've created the file, we don't have to do anything special in CAD. So File, Import. I'm going to pick my outdoor office. And then I'm going to grab this first. It might have been I started drawing a bunch of stuff. We'll see. So weird when it works one way in the beginning of the day and another way in the end. All right. But it's also good because then I can see what you would have happen to you. Okay, and then the interior walls we're just going to do as straight lines because we're not really going to build the interior this semester. Instead, we're going to focus on your boat plan. So if nothing comes up, that means there's no faces created, which means there's no loop. Who's hitting delete on the keyboard? How am I erasing? Oh, like if I clicked on a line like this? Yeah, I hit delete on the keyboard. Sorry. When I get into needing an eraser, I'd let you know. But yes, you could always select it with the select tool and then hit delete, or you could hit the little eraser up here in the corner.
Allison, after you do a line, do you hit escape when you to end it like we do in?
You hit escape. Correct. So we get our little diagonal lines in here. If they're not going to cooperate with us, we're going to have to grab a rectangle tool to finish the loop because I don't think so. I'll try it once here and see if it's just it being odd. Okay, so that would be one way to do it. It might be saying that the AutoCAD drawing is, let me guess. Yes, okay. So, interesting. This brings up a good point. So notice if I click on the drawing, it's this thing in a group. We call it a group. It's all blue, and I'm drawing on top of this. This is a layer underneath, more or less. So I created a group down here when I brought in my file. It might come in as a group, or it might not. This is really strange. It has to do with different computers, and I'm just going to tell you it in case 2017 does not. So if I Control C, Control V. Don't worry, copy works the same. So I just Control C, Control V, but that's not what tool I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on this group right now. If I were to come in like lines instead of a group, so I'm going to explode this. And don't worry about what I'm doing, just worry about the concept. If it came in like lines, then that case, it would have worked out like it worked for me earlier, where I'm adding in lines and it immediately creates faces. So that's one option. And really, it'd probably be the easier of the two, but that's only if it comes in this way. So I'm going to have to re-instruct because it worked fine. Like it came in one way this morning and one way now. So let's imagine, because I want it to be the fastest homework we can do, we import one more time. Okay, so import outdoor office, import. It thinks, it places it. If you click that, see? If you click on it and it's lines, you're good to go. If you hadn't clicked on it and it was lines, it's going to be something like this, where you have this whole selection, and I'm going to make it into what it would be like. Okay, so if you had clicked on it and the whole thing was blue like this, the step that you need to do is simply right click and click explode, like that. And once you explode it, then it's lines, and we're all going to be in the same place. Okay, so if it comes in as lines, that's great. You're ready to go. If it comes in as a big blue block when you click on it, you need to right click on it, and the word explode will be there. Click that, and then it'll turn it into lines, just like in AutoCAD. So it's kind of good we're covering these little weird things that can happen. So now I'm ready to draw those lines, and this should be more efficient. I add my little miter corner. Now, because it created the whole face, you're not done. We still need to have multiples eventually. So I want to come in here and draw my little corner. I want to come in here and separate off the interior walls. I want to come in here and separate off these interior walls. I want to do the rest of my corners. And I'm simply clicking twice. So I have my line tool, I'll click there, click to the second endpoint. Just like in AutoCAD, we have snaps. So you saw it's like, okay, endpoint to endpoint. You want it to say endpoint to know that it is in fact connecting and you're not drawing short of the line, which won't create the right amount of faces for us. So once I have all of those corners mitered off and the interiors walls kind of sequestered, let's look and see what our homework says we want to do. Delete extraneous window and door lines, close off, create guides for window and door. So we're going to end up bringing in models of doors and windows. So our lines no longer matter to us. What matters is the opening. So these lines don't matter. Notice I can just click, so left click, and I have to hold down and pull to the right and then release, and that will select this door here. If I do it the other way, it's only selecting certain things that are inside the box. So it's like CAD. If I go from the right to the left and I click and hold and then release on the other side, it's going to grab everything regardless of if I had the whole arch or anything it touches in the selection box. If I go from the left to the right, it's going to grab only this piece because it's the only thing that was fully in the selection box. So I want right to left and to delete all these pieces. Now let's zoom in. There's some messy geometry right here that didn't get selected. Delete. And I want to delete these lines, right to left. Delete. Okay, so now we're going to close off these openings. Oh boy, that was scary. All we did is just click on the piece we don't want. So the face that it made that was way too much outside, I click on the face with my selection tool, and then I hit delete on my keyboard, or erase is up here. And if I hit erase and then click on what I want to erase, it should erase it for me, in theory. Well, let's just see if it's just a line. Maybe it doesn't want to do the face unless it's outside a group. So if it doesn't, let's see if delete works. So delete it is. I hardly ever use erase because it's so finicky. I need another line yet, and it might do the same thing. And you're just going to get used to SketchUp being like, I want to do this for you. And you're like, no, you're not Google. Don't complete things for me without me asking you to. So keep going. Oh, I did it again. Come on, SketchUp. So then you click in here, click delete, and click in this big piece and click delete with your keyboard. So I'm hitting delete on my keyboard. And then I'm going to click my line tool again and finish up the other side of this opening that I'm closing. Now we have to do our selection tool. Click once for the face, delete. Don't double click. Now, some of you are like, you know, the crazy clickers. You cannot be that way in this class anymore, because in SketchUp, a double click means something different than a triple click, means something different than a single click. They all do really weird things. So when it's single click, it really matters this time. I'm going to single click in here and click delete as well until I have just the core walls that are showing as faces. So my homework said, do all of that work, extraneous lines gone, and then draw some guidelines based off of these openings to roughen my doors. So we're starting to get three-dimensional at this point. So I need to know some heights, and you're just going to trust me. I'm rotating up with my orbit tool. I'm holding the left click and pulling up like this. If I hold it and pull it down, it goes down. Some of these things you just have to experience for yourself a little bit, but I can clearly see these snap points for my windows and doors. Let's look at our homework. So my window is 1'6" above finished floor for the sill height, and my door is 6 foot tall to the topmost part of the door. I think I'm missing one dimension there, but we'll be okay for now. So this is my door opening. I could know that from my PDF. Now it's oriented the other way, so let's view and rotate the view clockwise until it's matching up like this. So here's my door opening, and that's what needs to be 6'10". So I'm going to grab my line tool, left click on the first point for the corner of this door on the exterior end point, and now I'm going up. Okay, so before I finish going up, I want to look at my notes page, which I might refer back to, and I have no problem with really posting this later for you. But right here's my notes page, and it's showing that blue line, and I bet this is, kind of hard to see for some people on the screen, the size of a small book. So if I zoom in a little bit and we look at this picture, the blue line is our vertical. Okay, so the line's going straight up and down, and the red line is my horizontal, and the green line is my depth. This is really important to remember. So blue, vertical, green depth, red horizontal. But when it's blue, it means it's perfectly straight. So that's good. It helps me understand some things. So, and then here we can see toolbar. That's the most important term I've used so far. Where our tools are at is our toolbar. Title bar, like in CAD, it tells me what my file name is. Status bar, this also tells you, it's basically like our command line. It's telling you like move this to the left or what's the next thing you want to do. And this is telling me measurements in the lower right hand corner. I feel like I heard someone kind of speak, but I'm going to keep going. So vertical line, great. That was a good signifier that I was doing the right thing. Vertical up 6'10". So when we type measurements in SketchUp, they show up over here in the VCB box where the length is. Unlike CAD, we don't have to put a dash between anything, and actually newer CAD doesn't require it either. So if I'm doing 6'8", I can type 6'8". Look in the lower right-hand corner. See how I typed it? Yes.
I think you said 6'10" originally.
Oh, 10. Thanks, Heather. It didn't finish it yet, so I'll pull it up. 6'10". Heather's right. I changed it this year because the molding makes it 6'10", and it was a weird thing last year. All right, so see it in the lower right-hand corner, 6'10". Now I can hit enter to finish the line. I think something went weird because I was kind of like tracking off. So we'll try it. And this is, I'd say measuring in SketchUp is even more important than CAD because it does get sticky sometimes. So I want to see this blue line, and I want it to be 6'10". Enter. All right, let's measure it. Maybe it's right in my, but it looks like it's falling short. Oh, it's good. All right, just looks so teeny tiny. Then I want to do the same thing from the other exterior endpoint. So up, snap to the blue, it'll turn it blue. See how it's blue? And I'm going to type 6 foot mark, 10 right next to it, and then the inches mark. Enter to finish my line. And then I could, I think, even connect them and I'll be fine. We'll see. We'll see what happens. If not, I'll just delete that line out. And now I have where my door is going to be. My window, I at least know it's 1'6" to the sill height above finished floor. So I'll confirm that here. My window is 1'6" above finished floor. That's this point and this point need to be up 1'6". It needs to be snapped to blue. So 1'6". 6 inches. I'm typing on my keyboard. You see it in the lower right. Enter. And then I'm going to hit escape and grab that tool again. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. 1 foot, 6 inches. Enter. All right, so that gives me some guidelines. Now that I have those guidelines, I'm going to go through, and it's not going to make sense why until I do it, but I want to delete these out because what's happening is SketchUp recognizes these as individual pieces. So if I go to push pull them now and I push this up 8 foot, it'll be like a bunch of different segmented pieces instead of a whole wall I cut openings out of. So what I'm going to do is delete out these lines interior to the wall. And I clicked it and then hit delete on my keyboard. Clicked it with my selection tool, hit delete on my keyboard, all the straight ones, not the corners in this case. And I have guides as to where my doors and windows are going to go. So I can now start to organize things because those were my only openings I needed some type of guidelines for. And when I push this up, it's going to be a full wall. You can see the full face now is highlighted instead of those segmented pieces. Whew. So if I go back out to here, I've deleted the extra lines, created the guides, and now I need to create some layers to help manage my whole drawing. So I need north, south, east, west walls. That's easy enough. You want to make sure that you have your default tray open. See this guy over here? He's called your default tray. If he's ever gone, you can come up here and open him from window default tray and turn him back on. But he should be here when you open it up. Under the default tray, we have materials, which if you click on any of these little drop down arrows, they'll make them bigger and there's more stuff you can do. And styles, but we want layers. Layers might have been closed. This might be how it is when you come in. You just click layers. I would recommend not having too many things open in the first couple weeks until we know what they are so you're not visually overly stimulated. So we have layers and we need to create north, south, east, west wall. I hit the plus button to add a layer. Notice when I hover over it before I left click, it says add a layer. I left click and I can do north wall. Then I can click plus again, south wall, plus again, east wall, west wall. All right, there's all my walls. What other layers do I want you to create? Floor, ceiling, slab. So a lot like CAD. Floor, click the plus, ceiling, hit the plus, slab, and then I'm going to go back and check doors, windows, roof. Plus, doors, plus windows. Oh, well, it could be separate layers. It doesn't really matter. Or it could be one or separate. We're just not doing much with it, so where it will matter. And then roof. And then I just click off of it if I don't have any more to create, and that will end out that command. So it creates colors for them. The colors don't mean anything. It doesn't draw them in those colors. It would mean something on a special map and special stuff that we would do with other pieces of the software, but it's not going to make it that color. It's not like AutoCAD. They're just to help you keep them straight. I remember doors are on green. You know, some of us are more visual than we are code and writing. So let's continue on. All of these layers are created. And now it says I need to group my walls before proceeding onward. So in order to create a group, right now we just have a bunch of stuff and it's all really sticky and not good. And I make it look good. So you don't believe me yet. But if I tried to move this line, for instance, and it's not in a group, look what happens. Ugly things happen to it. Oh my gosh, SketchUp, you are one crazy beast, and it really is mind-boggling, to be honest with you. So you don't want to move things by their lines You want to move things by nice contained groups that are very strategic. What I need to do is have this whole wall be in a group, this one, this one, this one, this one, because I want to turn them on and off separately, and I don't want them to move like creepy abstract shapes. So if I'm going to do that, I need to select things. Now we can select by clicking things. If I hold Control, see the little plus next to my cursor? This cursor in here, the little plus. I could do them all individually like that and click, and I'm holding Control. I'm not releasing Control, so I'm holding Control and continuing to click all the little pieces associated with that first wall. The corner pieces do not matter in this situation, okay? Just all the lines and the faces, not the corners. They do not matter. So I could select everything individually using Control. And the great thing about Sketches is you can like move just like AutoCAD, but I don't think people believe me sometimes. So like I have all this selected, and then if I select on my orbit tool, it's still all selected. I can kind of look around and see if I got anything as long as I don't click off of those things, click on the screen before grabbing my orbit tool. So I've got everything from my first group. Now I'm going to right click and click exit. And then I can right click on the stuff. So I right clicked on the face in here, and I'm going to click make group. Ooh, very nice. I have a nice little group there, and that's my first wall. Now I don't care how you're organizing your wall. So for me, I'm going to call this north wall today just as a jumping off point so you understand like this is north, this would be a north, this would be an east, this would be a west, according to how I'm doing it. But if you're in your AutoCAD, you really want it to be based off of our model, right? So if this was it and we have this being north, so this might be north if this is how you end up placing it. So it's up to you. But what I care about is the walls make sense, your layers make sense. So I wouldn't say this is east and this is west. You know, there wouldn't be a vertical east and west. It would be opposite ends kind of a thing. So this is my north wall. And I'm going to keep going around and making these individual groups. But this one right now says in the right-hand corner, it's on layer 0. Well, that's not useful. So I'm going to, just like in CAD, drop down next to layer with the wall selected and find north wall. And then I'm going to click off. Now, if I click on it again, just to check, it's on north wall. Great. All right, I'm going to click off so nothing's active, just on the gray space. And then I'm going to go to this next wall, which I said is going to be so if this is north, south, this is my east wall for me. Okay, doesn't make a lot of sense with how it's oriented, but it just is for me. So I can also select things like this, right to left, and it grabbed everything I need. Big long line, face. I don't care about the corners because they're just joints. So I'm going to right click on that and click make group. And once it's a group, it's active, I can come up here and I'm going to put that on east. All right. So then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to right click and select those three things, line, face. And I'm going to make that a click by right clicking, making it a group. And I'm going to put that on layer north because it's still technically with this north face on this whole side of the building. I'm going to do the same thing continuing on. So I escape out, so that's not active still. So this is on north, this is on east, this is on north. You can check yourself. It's in the right-hand corner. I'm going to hit escape so nothing is active, or click off into the gray space, not on a line, and continue to select around and repeat that process. So I might not keep talking at you for a while, but these things, let's right-click them first. Right-click, make a group. Layer, east wall. Where are you? And notice they're alphabetical as well. And then once it's a group, south wall. Right click, make a group, west wall. All right, now these guys, they don't have anything, so maybe there's an extra wall that we need to make. You know, maybe we just make a layer not mentioned in your homework. Maybe I'll add it, interior walls, because they're kind of insignificant for us since we're not going to complete the interior this semester. And that way I can collect on what's remaining, make it a group, and put it on interior walls. Okay, so we have all these nice groups. Now we're ready to push-pull, I do believe. So put walls on specific layers, push-pull, walls, and columns. So all walls and columns are 8 foot high. So this is where we're going to get into some double clicking. Single click selects. It makes an active item. Double click enters into a group. So I'm going to double click on this group. 1, 2. That puts me inside the group, which means now the only active items I could mess with are these items within the group. Everything else was grayed out. Now I clicked out here in this gray space and I'm outside now. If I click on my items so it's selected and then double click, 1, 2, I'm now in here and I can actively change it. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and I'm going to push pull my faces up to 8 foot. So I select my face and I think I'll have to click it anyway. So if I click push pull and then I click on the face that I want to push pull and I start pulling up, I'm going to see the distance changing in the lower right hand corner and I want to type 8 foot, enter. Ah, I did undo. So that brings up, and I'm glad these things are happening so you understand why, okay? It said, sorry, your distance is not going to go past 6'10". This horizontal line I created earlier is inhibiting it from going any higher because it's snapping to it and it won't let me go past it. So I'll just have to keep my side guides, which are plenty fine, and we'll try it again. So if I come into push pull, left click on the face, pull up. I don't want to snap to anything, okay? So we could even zoom out around and you can pull up higher than you're going and type 8 foot, enter. I'm going to measure to make sure. 8 foot. Okay, so here's my measure tool. I left click on it to use it. I want some type of point, midpoint, endpoint on the bottom line, and some type of point with the blue axis snapped in place on the top. And you can see without clicking even, it tells me 8 foot. So that's what I wanted. I can left click on my selection tool and double click out, or probably just even single click, but then I'm outside of my group because I clicked in negative space. So I've got some lines for these opening, and don't worry that they're overly extended, okay? SketchUp is really smart, and it's left me some secret guide points, which you can just barely see, like little thicknesses here, where it knows the real heights of those, and then there's other lines we can delete as we go on. So first I'm going to push pull the other walls up. I double click on this to get inside the group. I single click on the face. I know it's actively selected because it's dotty. If it's not, it'd be gray and solid. So double click in the group, single click on the face, and start my push pull tool by clicking on the face and pulling up and typing 8 foot, enter. I do this all the way around. So double click, push pull, click on the face, 8 foot, enter. I can always grab my orbit tool if I want to get a better view of something. I can pan in and out with my center scroll.
Is there a way to like select multiple walls at the same time and do that?
Not when they're in individual groups.
Okay.
If they weren't in individual groups, we could have done them all at once. If you hadn't drawn these little corner lines, because it would recognize the face as one giant thing for the whole building, like at the beginning how I had it, you could have done
Yeah.
it all at once. Or if I hadn't put them in groups and we just had the lines in between and I selected on all the faces, it could pull them up separate, but once they're pulled up, it's going to sticky them together if they're not in groups. And when you go to move anything, it'll get messy. Now, they don't
Okay.
have to be in groups. Technically, you could have just had the lines, pull them all up, and then gone through and done this really tedious selection process of pick the inside, because they'd all be separate things. Instead of being a group, it'd be like inside face, outside face, edge face, and you'd have to put that all in separate layers, which would work the same way, but it's messier, so just trust me. So here's our pull up, grab it, click, 8 foot, enter, and then I can click off, click this back wall, double click to get in, single click on the face, click on my push pull tool, click on the middle of the face, 8 foot, enter. It's really gratifying work. Like, it's really rewarding, you know, like a good offset in AutoCAD or anything else where it's like, woo, look at all the stuff I'm accomplishing with very little effort. So double click, click on this face, click our tool, push him up, 8 foot, enter. Okay, so I'm going to go to camera, standard view top, just to show you. We've now got this really nice building, and all of the edges are met up and everything's on a nice grouped wall, so I can select them and turn them on and off individually. If I orbit down this way and then let's say turn off my north wall, so over here's the visibility control for my layers, and I come up to my north wall and uncheck it, those walls go off, making it easy to get, say, a view of this wall in here or a view of this wall. I could then turn off this extra piece of wall, so my east wall, and get a full elevation of this back wall. So hopefully you see the benefit of organizing your model this way. It'll become clearer when you do it yourself and add way more to your models. So I'm going to turn the mech on and rotate in to finish off the interior. So double click on here, I'm in the group, I select my face, my tool, and pull up, 8 foot, enter. All right, and then left click off. So there we have quite a deal of work done for us in not very much time, all things considered. People who take Revit are like smirking, like this could be faster. But it's really meant for conceptual quick stuff, and it is quicker as far as the amount of learning that goes beyond the program. It's all very simple steps repeated in different ways. All right, let's pull up that homework. Walls on layers, we push pulled. We'll do the columns in a minute. It's just telling you they all have 8 foot height. Hide ugly lines, delete extraneous layers. Okay. So let's see. I've got this guy right here that seems to be part of that group. So what happens if I double click in this group? You saw that big dashed blue line? He was a guideline that must have happened when I used my measure tool. So I could right click on him with him being active and hide him. That's how we hide him. We literally hide them. If I come out and I kind of rotate around over here and I grab my selection tool and I select this wall and double click because there's this weird corner line here. I click into the group by double clicking, and then I single click this little line, I right click, and I can hide him as well. So now they're hidden. Now if you ever want to see hidden things, you're like, oh no, I really loved that line, you can go up to view and hidden geometry, and it'll show dashes of anything you've ever clicked on, and you have the ability to double click in there and right click and turn it back on. Okay, so nothing is lost. We did not delete it, we hid it. I don't want to see him though because I'm cleaning up shop. All right, so I'm going to click my orbit tool, orbit around a little bit more. These lines I need so far. It wanted me to finish deleting those messy lines. Probably should sneak around back. It looked pretty good, but no more messy lines besides my guidelines. The other thing it wanted me to do was delete extraneous layers. So, like I said, SketchUp's so smart. It brought in some things from CAD, our def points layer, which is useless to us. So I want to delete this. If I come over here and I right click on it, well, actually, I don't even need to. It won't let you. So let's just click on it so it's actively blue and hit minus. Other things that came in that we don't need, title block, that's nothing to do with what we're doing. We're going to click minus to delete it. It says deleted are empty. Choose what to do with the contents. We're just going to delete the contents because I don't think it's anything I need. It didn't delete off my floor plan or anything. Layer 0 is fine. We can keep that. And then it's just all of my stuff left in here. I think outdoor office is that floor plan, so I might want to keep that for a while, so don't delete that off. Basically, that def points and title block were extraneous layers we can easily delete with this minus button. All right, so let's go back to our homework. You're working through it. Cut window and door holes. Oh, the easiest but most maniacal part of this whole thing. I'm going to do it. It may or may not look easy. You never know. It might work. It might not work. Right, Heather? And then after we get it done, you're going to think it's really magical, and then you're going to get real frustrated at home. So let's give it a try, though. We need some holes for, let's try our door. So that's where I said, we got these secret points that are still here. Let's click our selection tool, select it, that's one click, double click to open the group so only it is active. All this gray stuff means can't touch me, sorry. Grab my little pencil line tool and it wants to find this endpoint on these kind of thicker lines. Now if you zoom in closer, they're not going to get much thicker. It just knows. So if I was down here, it's searching until it finds that green point, which you know is about 6'8". So we can come in here and connect these two endpoints. I'm going to click on my selection tool and see what that did. Well, it finished off the door hole for me. Now it's a separate face, right? I don't want these lines because they're just part of the wall that was overextended. So I'm going to left click on them with my selection tool and then hit delete on my keyboard. Now let's see this eraser tool. Would he work if I click on this? Yes. So it does. I'm just less thrilled with it. Okay. So now I'm going to kind of orbit up here a little bit. Now that I've created this hole, and I can tell because there's a face. Well, I've created a face, I should say. A face for my door. Notice it's only on one side of the wall. Boo. We want it to go through the wall. We want an opening, not some weird wall covering. So we need to grab the push-pull tool by clicking on it, click on the face to push and pull, and click to the back side edge. So see how it says on edge? Click it. And when you click it, you will get the best feeling in the world as your door is made, or at least the opening is made, and everything disappears and there's this really clean hole that's created for us. All right, so wonderful. What about our window? Well, we have these little dots down here. I grabbed my pen tool and it wanted to find the endpoint right away. I kind of just hover over those lines, and where I had created those guidelines up, it knows they're different down there. So I've got the bottom, which means I can delete off with my selection tool by clicking them one click, delete. Oh, I don't want that. One click, delete. And then I have to figure out the height of this. So to do that, I actually have to open up a second SketchUp file because this was one little measurement I left off. Yes. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to open up pool house one. No. Okay. So I'm going to check on this model, what I've got. So if I come in here and I measure it, It's about 5'3", and we'll just call it that for now for what we're doing for our homework this week. So let me add that in there. Edit. Equals 5'3" tall. Okay. So I want to grab my measure tool first. So left click on my measure tool, find the endpoint in here, and pull up and type 5'3", 5'3". Enter. Notice it created a little dot guide point. And I could click from here to here, and it creates a guideline. This is different than CAD, where I'm using lines and drawing extraneous lines. This is just a little dotted line, which I could delete out later. It's not a real physical thing that's going to create a face. Once I've created my guideline, I can click on my line tool, left click, find the point, and finish off the actual face. Okay, and I know it did it if this is a face like this, that's a dotted gray pattern. So it worked, and I could click on, ooh, Heather, did you see that? All right, so hold up, somewhere in this madness, it looked like it got out of the group. I just want to make sure. All right, so I double clicked and double clicked on this line, this blue dash line. That's what I want to delete. I just wanted to show you if you delete it, your line will stay here. I want to make sure this is inside the group though. We'll find out. This might be your frustrating moment. All right, so then I can delete off the extra by select tool, click, delete, select tool, one click, delete. And then I should be able to do the same thing where I kind of orb it up. The importance is that you're clicking the face and then clicking the edge on the push-pull so that it knows to cut at the back edge. So I click my push-pull, click on the face, and then I want the snap to say on edge, and it worked out. Woohoo! So now I have an opening for my window created here. Okay. Now I'm going to left click out of the group and review what's left in my homework. Push-pull the columns and create the slab. And let me look at my time. Yes. All right. So let's see. I said our columns are 8 foot as well. Notice there's a little boxy base, and let's look at my beautiful SketchUp model. All right, so it looks like there's more detail than not. For now, I'm going to create just this tube this week, and then we'll kind of pipe in some more details later, but I'm concerned about the tubes of the column. Last year, I just gave them the columns, they placed them. This year, we're creating at least the idea of them. So I need my circle tool, which is underneath my rectangle with the drop-down menu. Circle, that's what I want active. Now, notice right now, I'm kind of out of luck because there's nothing to snap to. So a little premature. Maybe I want to create some type of guide for myself. So I'm going to click on my measuring tool and come into one of these. The measuring tool is really good at finding points to snap to. So like if I grab an endpoint on the outside and I go to the center, that creates a little dot that I could then snap my circle to. So then if I click on my circle, it now finds a center point, and I can pull that to the edge, and it will end up creating my circle for me. Now it also created faces in this exterior. It's just a thing. SketchUp does that. Like I said, like autocomplete. It just says, oh, let me do this while I'm at it. We don't care. We just care that it did create the circle. Okay. So at this
Hey,
point,
Allison,
yes.
I just want to check with you real quick. With the tape measure, when you went to the middle, did you just like click it once and that was it?
Yeah, let's do it on this one over here. So I could click any endpoint along the diameter of the circle, right? Because it just needs an endpoint. And that allows me to then find it clicking to the center point, which is blue. So see, an endpoint is green and a center point is blue. And then I clicked again, which created that center dot.
So a total of 2 clicks?
Yep.
One
2
from the
clicks.
outside and one from the center?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
So then once I have the center point, I clicked my circle, found the center, so it says center as my first click, and pulled to the end point, which secretly created for me my circle that I will push pull up. So we need to, let me think. No, yeah, make a group, but I'm thinking about triple click and double click. So yeah, okay, so if I just want to double click. So if I double click on my circle, so if single click is just going to click the face, 1, 2 is going to click the face and the whole circle around it, its line that is encompassing it. So when I have that, I could right click it and make it a group, like Myra suggested in the background. Same thing, single click, double click to get it all, right click, make group. Once I have these grouped, I can double click on them and there's my face. I can use my push pull and pull it up. Ah, that was a circle. What in the heck is going on in my computer? Well, I'm going to type 8 foot and just finish this off so we can look at it. There are no curves in SketchUp. Everything is a series of very pinpointed polygonal shapes, all right? So if I look at this, it looks like a circle from above, but it's just very slight angles in a series creating a circle. There is no true curve. It is a bunch of geometric lines that are straight that come together to create every curve. So that's the difference between this and CAD. CAD could print and it wouldn't be pixelated, it wouldn't have lines in between it, it would have true curves. There's no true curve in the SketchUp program. All right, so this is fine though. It'll read as a column the reflections, the highlights, the shadows, everything in the software is going to make it look like a rounded column, but you can clearly see there's something going on here. And it also makes it annoying when you go to paint it sometimes. I mean, there's secrets around it, but those are strips. So imagine painting every single strip. We don't have to. There's a tool that helps us with it, but it's not one smooth surface. And sometimes it's more noticeable than others, like with a cushion for a chair, for instance, might not look how you want it to. So I'm going to repeat this process. I'm going to click on my circle face in here. I double clicked, and then I'm going to click on my push pull and come up 8 foot, enter, and that looks good. And I need to do the same process for each of my columns. So redundancy, we are going to come in with our measure tool, find an end point, connect to the blue midpoint, or center I should say, grab my circle tool, click to the center, click to the end point. That one didn't do my little outside guy. It was special. All right, double click, make it a group, double click to get in the group, activate the face, push pull, 8 foot, enter. Dunk. All right, one more guy, just cruising on through. Okay, so measure, endpoint to mid, center point, circle to center point, and then to end point. Double click, right click, make a group. Double click to get in the group. Single click to activate my face. Click on my push pull, 8 foot, enter. Yay! Okay, so there are my columns. And I could create a columns layer. And then I could grab this one and put it on individually, or I could do this, Control plus. I'm holding Control down and clicking on each of the columns, and then go up to layer, and it put them all on columns at once. Then click off. So the last portion of this is creating a slab base that's going to go under this whole model, and it does say that in the homework. I just don't need to go out. Notice there's a whole bunch of guidelines in here created from the centers of the circles. We can simply delete them. Okay, so you can click on them just with your selection tool, and delete them once we've found all the centers of our circles. It's just created by our measure tool, and they don't matter because they're not real lines, they're just guidelines. So now what I'm going to do is reference my PDF. It's overall is 26 foot by 21 foot. And it's 21 foot this way. So what I'm going to do is, you can always grab your rectangle tool instead of drawing lines. So actually, let me start with lines. So if I'm in here and I'm going to draw a line, and I kind of started from this red one just to give myself some orientation, I'm getting the depth. So it was 21 foot coming back this way. So 21 foot. I'm typing in the lower right hand corner. You can see that typing, enter. And then I think I said 26 foot. And the red is showing me it's coming out perfectly horizontally, or the width. So 26 foot, enter. And then I'm coming, I didn't mean to do that little weirdo line, so I'm going to delete him. It's like it glitched on my cursor. So I can find that endpoint and then pull down until it snaps to green, coming back forward, type 21 foot, enter. And then I can connect my endpoints and see how it follows the red axis in the front there. Okay, so I could do it with lines. If I do it with lines, I have a face and 4 lines, which means I want to 1, 2, aha, this is the situation. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 2 is okay. So double click until it has the lines and the face, and right click to make it a group. I could have saved myself that trouble by first grabbing my rectangle tool and kind of clicking to start up here at this red line. Notice the smaller thickness versus the larger width, and look down at the dimensions in the corner. So right now, as I'm pulling back, we can see that that would be our 36 foot would be the second dimension, and the 5 foot would be the first. So what I want to do is going to be the 26 foot and then the 21 foot, if that makes sense. It's kind of like a logical thing. So if I grab my shape again just by itself, I click a starting point. I want to see what's longer and what's wider, so I know what I click comma for. So right now I can see the width that I want is going to come first. So that's 26 foot. So I'll type 26 foot, comma, 21 foot. Enter. And it does the same thing here, but in one step. Now, until I make it a group, it only did faces and lines as well, but it did it in one step instead of all of those other clicks. So think about efficiency in using rectangles over lines, and it will really help your life in SketchUp. So I still need to double click, then right click, and make it a group. And then I basically just need to pick one of these guys that I want to use, okay? So I'm going to delete him, and I'm going to use this one. Now he's on layer 0 in the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to drop it down and put him on my slab layer that I created earlier. I'm going to double click in here, and I'm going to use my push-pull. Click on the face and pull down, let's say, it doesn't really matter. Let's just do 6 inches. It doesn't have to be anything special. And then click with my arrow out of here. And now I need to move him into place. Okay. So I could click on him, and then I can click move. And I want to zoom in for this. I need to find the endpoint that's going to kind of connect with the floor plan level, because this goes down underneath. So the flat top face is what's in line with that floor plan drawing. So I'm going to click on this corner here. And notice if I can stay snap, like this is way off. This is coming up in the sky. If I start pulling up, if I pull just to the left and follow this slight angle of this red plane, because my vertices are all pointing their true directions I want to go, and I stay on that red line, I should be able to zoom in here and find the end point of my top layer to snap in. So it was that little square for the floor plan. So now when I orbit up, and I just clicked to place it, I've got this lovely slab clicked there, which means underneath is the slab, and the face is now making up the floor of the building and meeting with the bottom edges of the walls. Okay, so that is your homework for the week. Let me pull up my notes though and just cover anything that I didn't, although I thought there were lots of opportunities to cover most of the terminology and use of basic tools. We might go through some of these browsers before you have to go tonight. Okay, so yep, rounded out my homework. It's all right there under assignment 8. We have some things to just draw: circle, rectangle, freehand shape, 2-point arc. Let's look at rectangle really quickly. So we have rectangle, and I do make it look really smooth when you're in here. It's just going to be a trial and error process. Some things we'll learn more about moving more efficiently when we get furniture and objects in here. But if you are in camera standard view top, you know when you go to draw a line, it's going to be on the same plane, like the 0 plane, this like ground level plane, as opposed to if you orbit out at all from not top view and you start drawing a line. Well, I'm pretty confident this is going to be, I just am. And I can't tell you how, it's like this weird magic thing that this is going to work out for me and be at the same level as the flatness of this top slab. If I had been up here, then I orbit around, I'll see, oh, that connected to the top of the building. Like there's instances where it could just suddenly be in space and you think you're going up, but you're really angling down. So let's see what I've made for myself. Yep, you thought I was still going out and left and right, but that line is down. But when I'm up here, it's kind of looked like it was coming out and over. So we want to orient ourselves top view when we're drawing out lines and new shapes like rectangles and circles just floating into space. And after we're done with that, we can physically move them up and down, which I'll show you now. So if I go to camera, standard view, top view, rectangle, and part of your homework is just drawing stuff. It doesn't matter where it's at. And I click and I click. I don't care about the size. And I left click off. I might want to make it I'm going to make it a group just to show you how I could move it then and know I'm moving it successfully. Right now I know, because I'm in the top view, it drew it on the flat plane that matches up with ground level for here. So I'm going to 1, 2, click, right click, make it a group. Then I'm going to orbit. And once I know I have this kind of 0 point, and you're not going to believe me that that is. See, that's where you'll start moving it because you're like, that's floating above. But no, it isn't. It's really lined up with this. It's just kind of hard to believe. So once I have that, I'm going to prove this to you. I could move it down 6 inches and it'll be in line with this. So if I then do move and pick a corner, and I start pulling down on the blue axis, see that dashed line, and I type 6 inches, enter as I pull down. And then if I'm right and I pull this straight to the right, it should line up with this bottom line here. So move, and now the corner, and I pull it over, and the line stays red is what's important. So let me get in closer so you can believe me. See this red? I'm like pointing at it here in the real space. I keep going. It's hard to get it to do at an angle. I think I'm gonna use my keyboard, so I'm gonna hit the left arrow so it snaps. And we'll talk about that too. Ta-da! It bounces right there on the edge, okay? So it didn't look like it was aligned, it was. And I have to trust that I placed it from the top view correctly and moved it the right dimension based off of what I typed into the measurements in the bottom right. What I did there, I was like, ooh, I'm having some trouble. So I clicked to move it, if I hit, you can use the little arrows in the lower right-hand corner of your keyboard to snap it to things so it doesn't get off. So right now it's like, oh, I want to go here, and maybe I want to go here, but where I want it is here. So I'm going to click the left arrow, like the way I'm kind of moving on my keyboard, and then I click that, it's made it so it doesn't want to unlock from there until I place it. If I clicked up, it will snap to up, and if I click down, it'll do the same thing. If I click left, now this is confusing. If I click left, it snaps to the green axis, but they all allow you to snap it so it's not willy-nilly everywhere and which way. Okay, so that's a rectangle. Now you don't have to move them or anything. I just want you to understand moving them since we do have some time right now, which is my plan by not drawing stuff in AutoCAD. So if we go to camera, standard view, top, and what was the other one? No one cares about you, rectangle. Let's place you somewhere. Driving me crazy. Circle. We did that already for those, but I wanted to see your own circle. There's a circle. Great. Homework done for that portion. 2-point arc. There underneath our arc is an arc, a 2-point arc, and a 3-point arc. So we want our 2-point, which means I click once, I click again, and then as I pull my cursor, it's about those 2 points. Those 2 points control the left and right boundaries for that curve, and the center point of it is where it's arcing the most. You just need to draw one and plop it down. Freehand shape. Well, that one's really easy. Okay. That one's just to see what happens. So here's my freehand shape. Let me choose my line tool first. I just want to do something not a rectangle or a square that's finished and makes a face. You can get pretty creative in here. Okay, there it is. Let's see, is it flat? Yeah, it looks like it was mostly flat with everything else. So that's my freehand shape. That's all I'm asking you to do. Experiment with that line tool because it'll be before you do all of this. Kind of get the feel of clicking, connecting things together, and being fairly free because it's not requiring you to be super precise. It just hopes that you connect the last endpoints. If I orbit it up a little bit, I could even connect weird floating shapes, like if I had it kind of like this, and then I had a point here, up here, and up might actually feel more like down. And then I come back here. Let's see what that did. Is it all flat in there, even though I went up a little bit? Looks like it's hovering over these guys, but it's still fairly flat. Sometimes you can get it to go up in the air. So like if I had created a point off of here and somehow got it to my blue axis and then came down and in, I could also do freehand shapes that are free floating in space. Okay, and that's just clicking and kind of orbiting and using the up, down, left, right arrows or the axes that I see by pulling up and down and left and right while I go to place something to get them in these three-dimensional lines. All right, so that covers all of the homework. And now I want to open back up in here and kind of control minus out because this was my logical lecture notes from the previous year that kind of just goes through extra information on SketchUp. So I'll zoom in a little more. In SketchUp, you're always working in 3D. It does the shading and perspective for you. You use it for 3D modeling. It was the first free 3D modeling program offered to the general public before it was costly. People were pirating other modeled software. There is a free version of SketchUp and a paid version of SketchUp, SketchUp Pro. It works with both Mac and PC. Pro uses by architects, production designers, and other design professionals. Only with Pro do we get layout and presentation, which are the two things found on your desktop that we don't cover very much. They come in with it. It's like SketchUp Builder, layout, and presentation. And just keep them. We might never use them, but they're still useful to have as you have your year-long license. And if you ever do independent study with me, we'll talk more about them. Let's see. Comes with a number of tutorials that aid in the learning, and one of them is the easiest 3D to use. Similar to CAD, the 3D software deals with two basic types of modeling, solid and surface. SketchUp deals with surfaces. So in CAD 3D, you have solid shapes, like you could 3D print your shapes, although you can do that with SketchUp too, and they wouldn't be hollow, but SketchUp's would be hollow, okay? SketchUp has a gap in between it. It's not solid, something you could cut through with a knife. Lines are more commonly referred to as edges. A solid would be like working with clay and cutting it in pieces. SketchUp Pro does have some limited use of solid features, but we're not going to dive into it. There's another breakdown of curved modelers and polygonal modelers. SketchUp is a polygonal modeler, uses all straight lines and flat surfaces, and fakes curviness. Let's see. It does not naturally photorealistically render, but there are plugins that you can buy, which I'll show you here in a minute. And dynamic components are new. So like if you download a cabinet, sometimes you can just right click and it'll automatically change to be 24 inches or 36 or 30 just from one individual model. So I'll probably post all this stuff. I can tell right now I covered a lot of and everything necessary for now, and we'll cover in more depth a lot of the toolbar in the following weeks. But I'll post these notes so I can talk more about the videos I have within the session. If I go to my modules and we look at module 8, I've given you the link to video tutorials and getting started, and all these links can be found. So I have them all open up here. Video tutorials. You click getting started and there's how to draw axes, a circle, a polygon. There's getting started part 1, and it's just going to do what I did. So if you ever don't have me or you want to go faster than me, you can't beat SketchUp itself, really. I mean, I'm great and all, but this would give you a even slower modeling of just how to use individual tools, but it's not as specific to our class. So they're available to you within the session, and there's pretty much anything you can imagine: how to rotate, how to pan, how to bring in a photo, all the things we'll learn this semester and more things at a slower pace. The other one is selecting geometry. I have this link underneath, and it just talks about clicking on things, because even though I made it look easy, it'll become more complex over time as we get into furniture. It gives you ideas of using your keyboard for special selections, and we'll cover it more in depth later. But a double click, the face and its edges are selected. Double click an edge, the edge and its connected face. And it's showing you what those things look like when you click on them. Triple click and all the connected entities will be selected. So it's going to select anything. So as long as it's connected by a line or a face, it select the whole three-dimensional object. So clicking really doesn't matter. It's the hardest thing to grasp. Go ahead and read this and look at some of the tools. If you are using Mac, which I know at least one of you are, except that person's very familiar with this software, then there's always instructions on SketchUp for the Mac user versus the PC user, and I would refer you back to there to check them in their help center if I mention a tool that might be different from yours. So Control for Windows is Option for Mac, little things like that. Shift Control, Shift Option for Mac. Here is a plugin. A plugin is a separate software. You download it and then click to add it into your SketchUp. And once you add it into your SketchUp, and most of them you have to pay for, some are free, it has the ability to render like this instead of what you're seeing like with my SketchUp. It's almost as good as Revit, and in some cases it's better than Revit. So it is possible. There's some lower level free ones like Kirkathea, which I've used in the professional field, but it's pretty much as intense as trying to understand Revit on your own, if not more, because there's no individual tools for three-dimensional shapes. You have to draw them and then make them light up and all this other stuff. So the plugins are easy. The free plugins, not so easy. They range. You could pay $5, you could pay $50, and usually you can watch videos to see how easy they are to use and read reviews on places like YouTube and other sites. I don't have any I recommend. I really just hope that we get through basic CAD in my class. Mac versus SketchUp, I just include this for people who are like, what is the difference? There's some people who really, really want to use Mac, and for my class, it's just not worth your time if you're somebody who needs step-by-step instruction, because I can't do both. But this explains the big differences in the tools overall. It's kind of old, and it might have changed for our new version, but it still talks about the usability of it. 3D warehouse. Okay, so this is where I'm just going to kind of breeze through this and open a file to talk about where you're headed in space planning, and for people who are going to leave my class and just know how to use SketchUp that want to use it for their own house like I use it for mine. So I'm going to open up from my desktop my week 8, and I did the same thing that I did with that file, except I went into Liz's AutoCAD file, the big one, and I saw, okay, space planners. So Liz had a kitchen. She had a couple kitchens that she had set up in here, and I just isolated this one, copied it, made a new file, pasted my kitchen in where I wanted it to be, saved it as kitchen isolated, and I imported that little footprint in. And then doing what I did tonight, I was able to just walk through really fast. Now, when you're doing elevations, in some situations, we don't care about the walls. We just care that the walls are on their own layers. So I just went through and did the close the shape, all the walls drew at once, pulled it all up at once. Notice there's no corners in here, because all I really care about is exporting this elevation. This is where you're going to be my new best friend, right? So what is the Google Warehouse? It's this little 3D warehouse button in the upper right-hand corner. And it has thousands, if not millions, I'd believe at this point, of things that other people have taken the time to model. So let's do cabinets. And here's all these cabinets. And it's going to go on for a lifetime's worth of cabinets. Be shaker cabinets and French country cabinets and plain flat overlay cabinets and anything you can think of. Also, you could go to Craft It Made's website and download the models directly from them, already set up in really nice floor plans as complete footprints, and bring them in. So you can see why it would be great. I can bring in this whole kitchen if I want to. Now, it's open source to everyone. That means little 5-year-old Tiffany and me, and you sometimes get the quality of little 5-year-old Tiffany, okay? So don't trust everything. Just like the blocks where today Professor King goes, that depth of that closet is too deep, you need to modify it. Blocks and things are for your reference only and meant to speed up the process, but not to be dependent on for you figuring out codes and specifications, all right? You need to do the work. These are just placeholder time savers. Some you know, because when you click on them, it's going to tell you the exact dimensions. And some of these are pretty great. So they're going to say 24 inches by 30 inches, and you'll be like, great, I can use that. Other things, you know, little Tiffany put up there and she's messed around with and it's broken and you're not going to know. Measure everything. That is your responsibility as a designer. All right, so I'm going to download this. And it brings it into my model. I'll put it by Rosie over here. And then I can rotate it. Now, this is not the main study for me today. We're going to do this in the future. I just want to like get you excited. So I could rotate it anyway. I could rotate it up and down that way. If I go to camera, standard views, top, rotations, just like movements, are easier when you're looking at them from the top down with things you're placing. So I can spin it all the way around, and we can type in degrees, and we can type in all types of stuff. Works a lot like CAD. Rotations, just 3-dimensional, lots of snapping. And there's my cabinets, probably the right height, right size toe kick, and whatever width I've brought in is the width that I have. We can also then easily scale this to be bigger or smaller. Now it obscures some of the stuff in the middle, so it might be even easier to just say, no, I don't want to do that. I want one that's double that, and I Control C, and then I edit, paste and place. Now I'm flying through this because it's not your homework. It's just a tutorial on why this is so great. And I copied and I pasted it in place, and then I have another series of cabinets, and again and again and again as many times as I want. And then I could bring in the other ones. Now I said some of these, you can right click on them and they're dynamic. And if it is dynamic, this one is not. And you can search by dynamic on SketchUp. I could just come in here and it would say change to 36, and I click 36 and it would shrink or expand accordingly. Once you get your models in, like I've placed some of this is what's great. So I can pull this over, and I created exactly what Liz wanted: a refrigerator, a stove, these cabinets minus a countertop. It also helps you think about the reality of your model. So in the center part, if you put your kitchen there, it's like what, 12-foot walls or 10-foot or something. So it's really high, and I don't have any upper cabinets, but look at all the negative space above. Not pretty, I'm just telling you that. So do you want beams or do you want taller upper cabinets? You really have to think about it three-dimensionally. So once I get in here, I can go into parallel projection. Just ignore anything you don't understand right now. Standard views, I'm gonna say probably back. Okay, so that made it into an elevation, the combination of those two things. And I'm gonna delete out all this junk, Rosie, my other ranges I didn't use, any little pieces. Zoom out until I've just got my elevation. And then I'm gonna go to File, Export, 2D Graphic, Week 8. I'm gonna change this to AutoCAD drawing file, Export. Okay. And then I'm going to go into my week 8. Open this. Oh, there's my elevation as I have it from there, in lines with all the little teeny tiny stuffs on them. Now it needs to be cleaned up some, but it could be an extreme time saver, right? Especially if the elevations aren't dimensioned elevations. Now these would be, so they'd have to be brought back into CAD. But let me show you. Copy, go back in here and paste. This matches up with this. It's backwards and upside down. But see how I then have an elevation for that space in about 10 seconds. So if you bring in the right models, it could look really, really pretty, and it takes you no time and you dimension it all out. So we all can see the obvious benefits of our SketchUp. Cindy says, does the undo work like AutoCAD? Yeah, undo is universal, which is wonderful. So if we're in here and I delete Jim on accident, sorry Jim, and we go to edit, undo, there he is, pop right back to where we want him. So you're like, okay, cabinetry is great, but you can do any number of things. So this is the other last thing. I've got 7 minutes and we'll see if I can get it done or not. If I want to do my boathouse model, let's see if I have one on here. Boathouse. This. Let's imagine I do have it. Is this it? If it'll let me open it. Silly. Open with desktop. No, it's not going to recognize it. I wonder if I can get it. Well, I'll have to do, basically, I'm going to post the boathouse file, like I said. I can't be held responsible for how weird it is. It's accurately drawn. It's just not organized well, okay? So if I was to come into SketchUp and let's say I have this house. This is perfect, okay? And I give you a file like this for the whole boathouse, and you're going to be responsible after your break for doing exterior elevations for Professor King. And you saw how time-consuming this section was with me telling you exactly what to do. If I come in here and I do camera, standard views, front, or I could do camera, standard views, left, any of these could be an elevation. All right, we like this one the most, parallel projection. And then I do file, export, 2D graphic, pool house, desktop, week 8, export. And this was the boathouse model that I gave you already fully drawn. Then I go into my AutoCAD and where's my week 8? Let's see. It's thinking right now. Sort by date modified. Still drawing it. Boop, 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 boop. Let me make sure I was right. Oh, it was a JPEG. I don't want a JPEG. Boo. I want this. There we go. So if I don't, because here's what it made. It made a beautiful JPEG, which is nice for other reasons. So we got that. If I don't want a picture, bam. Now who's your favorite teacher? Is it me? Yes, me? All right. That's what I thought. So if I give you a whole model, which I am, then your job as people in space planning for the boathouse is to figure out how to export things like this and then bring them into your file by simply copying them, copy, and then going into your thing and pasting them. So that way, I mean, this is what it would look like compared to the section of that house, right? And then based off of your plan, some of you, because like you could do the patio side of this. So you'll rotate my model to be that way, and then you'll end up having a patio, and the patio will be so high, and maybe you're modifying it to have little planters on it, and maybe there's going to be a dining table, and in that case it's your job to do stuff to the model in SketchUp, right? I would come in and say, okay, I'm going to add chairs, so when I export this you'll see the little top of the chair over the patio, and I might add dormers or people standing over here and a car and whatever else, but Mrs. Green has done all the work for you. So it'll make your life easier, but that's up to you to do outside of my class. We don't do those exterior elevations for my class. I just show you how to use the software to benefit yourself, okay? All right, you're welcome. So, and it's not cheating either. I've asked Professor King because there's enough modifications to be made, but it just gets you thinking because we use the software for this kind of stuff all the time. The annoying things are it looks pretty from 10 foot away. Okay, so SketchUp doesn't import, export as well as it is in there. So it's polygonal. So instead of having a nice thing now, you have 10,000 lines. This might be made up of 50 lines. You never know what you're going to get, okay? Where we had a solid line here, this guy's made up of so many lines. And lines are hard to think about. So for these kind of things, you want to be choosy. You don't want to import, export just willy-nilly. You want to do that for like final elevations and things that are going to take up space on purpose, not just hang out in case you ever want them. They'll really slow you down. If you're lagging now, you're really lagging. Okay, so this is due the 22nd after your break. I hope you all enjoy your break. When we come back, we'll continue on with SketchUp and CAD in a mixture like this, which is super helpful. A lot of your work you'll see in 108 is being explained by me. I explain things a little bit differently, so kind of like logical step-by-step things like we did tonight with how am I going to do my, although actually it's doubly reinforced. So like we'll get into the electrical plan and I show you how to draw an electrical plan, you know, so all the drawing that's due for Professor King is re-explained in my class by me. So if you have questions, come to either of us because we work together all the time. I know a lot about her class and I want to help. Have a good night. This pushes me to my time for my history class. I'll see all of you in a minute. I believe so. One.
I think you have to pay for both. That's what I was thinking. I wish I could do it. I know, it'd be nice if I didn't have to store everything on one all at once, so my computer would crash. I know. I'm not downloading SketchUp on my laptop because it's already running really slow with the cat on it.
Do you put all your files on your external though? And then like all the software is on your?
As long as I'm doing it right, like that's what I'm intending to do. If I'm not doing it right, I don't know. See, I'm not very techy, so I need to learn how to do that. Like, I don't even know how to save my stuff in the cloud. So someday, maybe, Allison, if you wouldn't mind teaching me that.